Hey, LinkedIn, and welcome to Business Unusual. This is a live show where we talk as a community about the changing nature of work. I'm Susie Jackson. I'm a news editor at LinkedIn. It is September 3rd, and here's a quick look at some of the top stories LinkedIn members are talking about today. Watch out, Amazon. Walmart is launching a new membership service later this month. Members can pay $98 per year or $12.95 per month for delivery of groceries, electronics, and other items. But for free delivery, customers have to clear a $35 order minimum. Walmart is hoping its many retail locations will help shipping costs stay down. Economists warn about a lurking recession within a recession. As temporary layoffs turn into permanent ones and long-term unemployment increases, economists say there's a 1 in 4 chance of a double dip recession. That's according to a survey by the National Association for Business Economics. The CARES Act passed in mid-March hoped to avoid this, but experts are saying more needs to be done. You can stay on top of the news by checking out the LinkedIn news module to the right of your news feed if you're on a desktop, or by clicking into the search box if you're joining us on mobile. The live performance industry has changed. With the shuttering of stages across the country, artists and musicians are experimenting with what it means to create and connect in a socially distanced world. With us today is renowned playwright Kristoffer Diaz. Kristoffer's play about wrestling and race, titled The Elaborate Entrance of Chad Deity, was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. Also joining us is Anthony Roth Costanzo. Anthony is a Grammy-nominated opera singer and producer, currently performing with the New York Philharmonic. Please join me in welcoming Chris and Anthony to the show today.
Hey, thanks, Susie.
Hey, gentlemen. Great to have you. Great to have you. I want to start by talking about the work that you're doing now. And Chris, I want to start with you. You talked to us about the play. You had this interesting arc of doing it the old-fashioned way in the theater with the live audience. You've been doing a digital reading recently, and I know you're also trying to do it in person. I'm really curious about what's that journey like, and what have you been learning and feeling about your creative process, and what the connection with the audience means in all these different spheres.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, and thanks for asking. So I wrote this play called The Elaborate Entrance of Chad Deity more than 10 years ago now. We debuted it in Chicago in 2009, brought us to New York in 2010. It was a finalist for the Pulitzer at that point, and it's gone on to a life, and theaters have developed it in other places for the last 10 years or so. And for the 10th anniversary, we wanted to get together and do a reading of it in person. Then COVID hit. We weren't able to do that. Luckily, we found an organization called Play Per View that is doing just this, bringing back old plays that have had productions previously, and finding ways to do them in little Zoom box examples here. So we brought back most of the original cast of that production, did it a few weeks ago, and a few hundred people got to come see it that night. A few hundred more got to come see it a few days after. We raised some money for a group called New Dramatists, where I'm on the board, a playwrights resource organization. And it was pretty fantastic. It's a strange moment. We're trying to figure out, how do we keep making shows? How do we keep making our art and getting it to audiences at this time, where our industry, which is entirely built around being with other people in the same space, literally breathing the same air, we can't do that anymore. So, we were able to find a way to do it here. And now we're looking at other opportunities. Is it something that we do in an animated format? Is it something we take out into a park somewhere and do for an audience, a socially distanced audience? Tough to figure it out, but everything is a possibility at this point.
So bringing a play to Zoom, trying to figure it out there, trying to stage it in person as well. And Anthony, I know that you're also trying to be really creative about bringing the work to where people are right now. Can you talk to us about what you're doing with the New York Philharmonic?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm, an opera singer first and foremost, but I've also been a producer and have been trying to find creative ways to bring classical music and the arts in general to new audiences and bring new audiences to us. So COVID, as much as it was terrible for our industry and it was devastating, it also felt like a kind of opportunity if we approached it the right way. And I was, of course, getting fatigued from all of the virtual performance. As much as it connects us and it gives us these opportunities to connect to the art form, I was craving live performance. And I remember when we were all applauding the healthcare workers, not only was it the support of the healthcare workers, but to open the window every night and hear and share that applause, it felt like community. And I knew that we needed to find that community somehow and connect with live music. And so what I did with the New York Philharmonic was to get a pickup truck, throw musicians from the orchestra on that truck, drive all around New York and give these, we're calling them pull-up concerts, 15 to 20-minute concerts on street corners all throughout all 5 boroughs. We're connecting to different communities, different people, and just, it's a real grassroots way of finding how our art can change in response to the audience. And that's been so wonderful. We have to do more of that. And this is the first step. I don't think this is the answer. I don't think it's the solution. But I knew we had to take a step in a direction, not only for sharing music live again, and boy, the emotions of people that you can just sort of see interacting with them on the street are so important, but how do we let our art form change and respond in a nimble way to what's happening? We're so used to, in the arts, planning years in advance or planning very far in advance. And actually, this moment allows us to respond in a more visceral, human way to what's happening and allow the emotions sort of within the art, within the music, to sort of be a catharsis for people. So it's been a really exciting project, and one that changes as we have new partners, new guest artists, new organizations or communities that we get to partner with and go into. So it's been a way to find the silver lining in all of this doom and gloom.
I love that connection to community, that notion of creating together and playing off the energy of the performer and as the audience is receiving it. I want to take a moment to say hello to our community on the show today. We have a lot of folks joining us on the stream. There's Christine from New York City, Richard from South Africa, Patrick is joining us from Germany, Nancy from Texas, Noah from Canada, and Joyce from New Jersey. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Jersey, all right. That's where I am right now, so shout out to Jersey.
Big love to Jersey from Chris and from Joyce. Glad to have you both with us from that great state. I want to ask you too, from industry, have you attended any live events? Are you thinking about it? What does that mean in your life? Are you missing that connection that we're talking about here with Chris and Anthony? And as we get back to thinking about the art and the creative process of this, Chris, I want to ask you, you've now done the play the old-fashioned way, the Zoom way. What changes, if anything, about the connection with the audience when you're virtual? How do you have to rethink the work and their reception of it?
Yeah, it's a crazy thing to rethink about. I can't imagine how developing a new play online would work. But for this, we had a play that our star, Desmond Borges, had done for, he's been connected to this play for 10 years. And he's got certain rhythms in his body. And the play is it's built around the idea of direct address. So the play very much has to do with finding somebody in the audience and talking to them, as you see, rubbing your hands along, having somebody in the audience rub their hands along your abs or something like that. And we couldn't do any of that, obviously. So we needed to figure out what the equivalents were and know what we could do, know what we couldn't do straight off the bat. We weren't going to be able to get away with some of the ways we got laughs or some of the amazing physical moves that like you're seeing here. So we had to start playing with the physical space. And so there was a lot of getting up here was confiding in the audience and then stepping back away, opening up the entire, the audience's ability to see your whole body and use of space. So we got to play with that. But we lose that same space, same area connection. The one moment that was really exciting and then in retrospect kind of a little heartbreaking is once the show ended, we opened up the chat and we could hear, quote unquote, hear the audience responding and applauding and saying bravo and doing all this kind of stuff. And we were like, oh yeah, we don't have that. We're missing, a third of the play, a quarter of the play, whatever that might be, which is that interaction. So it's hard. And, in this digital space, while we're really connected, and the exciting thing, we have somebody from South Africa joining us today. We have people from all over the world. That's incredible and something you would never do and have in the theater. But we don't have them here in the room with us. And so we're trying to chase that. I want to say one thing quickly, just about Anthony, real quick. The idea of the truck is so amazing. And it's not, it just is a callback to, obviously like Joseph Papp in the beginning of the New York Shakespeare Festival. And I think there's something really exciting about the ability to bring art out of the cathedrals and the temples and the big, beautiful places that we make it and bring it to the people. So I just read the Times article this morning about you, and I thought it was incredible. So,
thanks. I love what you're saying too about all of these things we learn in the digital sphere, and we learn in this time, bringing the art out to people. What we have to remember, early on in the pandemic, I was reading an article and I was struck by this idea that we can't we can't rebuild. I mean, will we have the courage not to rebuild what we have lost? And of course, we want to go back to this live performance. We want to go back to all that we knew, but we can't rebuild it the same way. We have to take these things we've learned from our months in the virtual sphere, this kind of intimacy, this international approach, and from these months going out to these different communities, and we have to rebuild in a new way. And I think that's very exciting. I think we have to find the optimism that is contained there. You know what I mean? So that the new perspectives we've gained from all the sadness, from all of the struggle, can build something new that connects even better. I don't know how you feel about that sort of approach, Chris.
Yeah, it's we're just going to keep going.
I gotta say, great. Is this an opportunity for big institutions to find new ways to speak to what the U.S. looks like right now?
I hope so. I really hope so. We have to rethink, the business model of the performing arts to be, completely realistic has been, dealing with an older audience, a richer audience, an audience that always sort of can be counted on to buy subscriptions and support this work. And that already was a model that wasn't holding up incredibly well. Things are changing, the demographics are changing, what people want are changing. And so I think, this moment of possibility, thinking about this as a moment of possibility feels essential. I was in New York City, not to go to another dark place on top of a dark place, but I was here on 9/11, and as awful as 9/11 was, that if you were here in New York and you remember that weekend, 9/13, 9/14, 9/15, the love that everybody had, and there was a sense of possibility of what are we going to do to change things after all of this. And I'm hoping that we're able to hold on to that kind of stuff. And the arts are going to have to, because the arts are, always in a financially precarious place. And if we don't find ways to connect with new audiences and connect with the audiences that actually represent what New York City is and represent what the United States looks like, we're going to be in big trouble.
Anthony, let's stay with that for a minute, the financial side of it. As I understand it, if theaters don't sell out, that's a problem. That's a risk to the art, to the production, to the health of that theater. Theaters are closed right now, and we're talking about these wonderful ways that you and others are creating and bringing art out into the masses. But are we going to go back to that model where if the butts aren't in seats, then it doesn't go on?
That's a really great question. I think we have to reinvent the funding model for the arts in this country as well. Of course, in Europe, classical arts, opera, all of that is funded largely by government. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen in this country. So I feel like in the purely American way, there's a new solution. For example, we have a Ford F-250 truck. And as soon as the New York Times article came out about the New York Philharmonic bandwagon, of course, Ford tweeted out, "We love this idea." And is that the beginning of a partnership? These companies that spend a lot of money promoting their products with pop stars and all of that, how can we engage different corporations, different companies in the arts to get them to connect with us and realize the power of the arts to move people, to change their opinions? And there have been, throughout the history of the arts in America, there have been moments where corporations have invested in that way. And I think it's really impacted the corporation as well as the arts. So we have to find different ways of creating streams of revenue. And I don't think it's always about selling out, especially when it's subscription audiences or core audiences, because when we stick with those people, it does dwindle as people get older and older and older. And we need to be thinking about how we're engaging, the points of access we're giving, what arts education we're doing, because boy, I've now been doing this so long that people who I taught a class to when they were in middle school show up at the opera and they're in college. You know what I mean? And that's exciting because those are our audiences. It happens faster than you think.
Anthony, I don't think you look old enough for that to be true, but I'm going to take your word for it. We've got some members in the stream who are echoing your sentiments. Michelle says it's incredible to pivot and bring art into the masses. Perhaps those who never attended a concert will choose to now that you've shared this experience. So that's a big thank you from Michelle. And Linda says, absolutely, performers and audiences are evolving, and the relationship will be new when we come back together. Staying on that idea of evolving and the relationship, Anthony, I'll go back to you for a moment. I know you're driving this Ford truck into neighborhoods full of people who maybe have never attended the New York Philharmonic concert. What is it like to create this music and watch them experience it and open up this potentially new window to them? What does that do for the art that you're making and for the future of where this is going?
Well, one thing which we can't take for granted is we're trying to rethink about how people talk about what we're doing. I hate the word outreach. I think we all feel like it sounds like we're on a perch and we're reaching down. But even the idea of serving a community, I've started to walk away from that term, because in fact, I don't feel we're serving them. In a way, when we phrase, when we make music, when we make repertoire choices, if we're just doing it for the core audience that is always coming to our theater, we become boring artists and our art doesn't stay relevant. When we can see the faces, when we can see how it touches them, when we can see people who don't get it and we can try and make it in a different way so that they do get it, that's when the art gets exciting. And that's when the core audience says, wow, this feels so fresh, or I've never heard anything like that, or wow, that's so exciting. So we need to have that interaction with other groups. And that's what's exciting, to see the musicians of the New York Philharmonic, to myself experience how our playing changes over the course of a weekend when we're doing these 9 performances every week. You know, it's so moving. It's so emotional. I'll tell one quick story. When we had to change our location last week because there was a protest, and we moved to let the protest happen. And then I was singing a sad aria to sort of honor the protest and everything that it was about. And I saw this man stand up, and in the middle of a busy New York street, he closed his eyes for the entire 4 minutes of a classical song that I think he may have never heard before. And to see it connect, move people that way, to sort of promote within us an empathy for what someone else might have been feeling, and within him a sort of connection to what we were expressing. That's the empathy we need politically. That's the empathy we need in terms of, the virus and every aspect of what's going on right now, especially the social justice.
That's a beautiful story, Anthony. Thank you for sharing that. Chris, going off that theme of connection, so Anthony's doing these performances in public and he can interact with the audience. That's not the same the same is not true for you in the play, for instance. And I have Christine in the stream saying that she really misses the arts and going to the theater, saying Broadway is such an important part of New York City life and it's an amazing experience. But what about people outside of New York City, say? Chris, as you're staging this play virtually, and if you're thinking about theaters doing the same kind of work across the country and across the world, what is it like to not have that connection? Is it actually, maybe that's a negative, but is there a positive in that you are able to reach people who couldn't go to New York before, couldn't go to your small theater before?
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope that, I work with an organization called the Dramatists Guild, and we represent playwrights all throughout the United States. And on that guild, I'm working with a committee called the New Media Committee, where we're thinking about the ways that theaters are starting to use digital spaces, and either as promotional tools or tools for distribution for the work that they're already doing, or to create new work specifically for the digital space. And we've been talking to a bunch of different theaters, and a lot of small theaters in cities, throughout the United States. I spoke to a theater in Salt Lake City who had a show going on during the shutdown. They had a 1-person show. They were able to record it in the last few days that it was running. They put it up online, and I forget the numbers. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it was something like they had people in 80 countries who came in to watch it. They had more people come in to watch their 1-person show than ever would have been able to come to their 99-seat theater in Utah. I'm getting the numbers wrong, but we're in the ballpark. So there's definitely a model here, and we're wondering about the ways that it can spiral out forward into the future. We did our show, Chad Deity, in New York City at Second Stage, and we had a nice group of people coming out to see it. But then the show ends and it's done. And, people will never get to see that production again until now. We did it again 10 years later on Zoom. But we're wondering about ways that we might be able to find digital spaces as an additive rather than as something that theater has always thought of like television or film as, which is sort of subtracting from the potential ticket buying audience. So for example, what happens if a show closes at a small theater in Salt Lake City or in St. Louis or anywhere in the United States, and then for the week after it closes, you're able to take that digital production, you're able to have recorded it and send it out and let people buy tickets to it and get another week of ticket sales, which is going to help because every theater needs more money in terms of ticket sales and earned income, but also just in spreading the word and getting this development of the careers of the actors who are doing the piece, or letting more people know who this writer is. So we're trying to figure out ways, we as a community and we as a field, as a sector, that this moment, I think just like Anthony was saying, this moment can force us into some decisions that have to be made for the short term, but then can have real legs and trigger some kind of long-term financial additive benefits for an industry that really needs it.
Yeah, and we've got Anthony in the stream here talking about the importance of building audience, as you're talking about, Kristoffer, too, and saying it's really important to make sure that you know how to drive them to what the next interaction with your content would be. So interesting.
Yeah. If I could just jump on that, one of the big problems with the theater, with the American theater especially, is that if you like the work of a playwright, you get to see the work, a play of mine in New York City. I might not have another play in New York City for years. You may not be able to sort of come back and connect with that artist in the same way. What we're looking at now, not just in our field, but everywhere, is the way that the Patreon model or the Twitch model. And how does an artist? Oh, here comes my son in the background. Come on over, buddy.
Welcome to the show.
Here's the live event, right? The live event is that our little ones pop in. How do you create something? This is Oscar. Say hi.
Hello, Oscar. Welcome to our show.
He can't hear you because I have my headphones in. We'll see you later, buddy. Hey, let me finish my one thought. The one thought is maybe there are ways that we can develop longer term, more intimate, closely related relationship with the artist, and you get to know me and you get to know my son, and then invest in our careers in a different kind of way than just investing with an institution that may or may not give you what you want in the long term.
Well, I love that we're doing it live, that we are getting to know you as an artist and your son and Oscar. Later that I'm really happy that you joined us today. I want to talk to the stream, a few more comments coming in from there. Drew says the Hamilton format works well, streaming services. People are culture starved. And Spencer says, what a positive way to influence communities. Thanking you both for the work that you're doing. I would like to thank you as well. I've learned a lot on the show today. Oscar, really happy to have you. Glad that you could join us as well. This has been Kristoffer Diaz and Anthony Roth Costanzo. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on Business Unusual today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye.
Take care, and thank you in the stream for joining us as well. Tomorrow, I would love it if you could join us at 12 noon Eastern again for Get Hired Live. My colleague, Andrew Seaman, will be talking with Tristan Layfield, who is the founder and head career coach at Layfield Resume Consulting. They're going to have a conversation about how you can spruce up your resume and get that next job. That is noon Eastern on Friday, September 4th, right here from the LinkedIn news page. Thank you for joining us on Business Unusual today. I'm Susie Jackson. Have a great day.